Hey everyone, welcome to this podcast called Ken Reads, where I, Ken, read out your letter that you've shared with me in the hopes that I can better help you understand what the F just happened between you and the last partner you were dating, whether it was in a relationship or a situationship. I look at these experiences from the lens of attachment theory. I don't just come up with thought terminating cliches like, they're just not that into you, or if they wanted to, they would. While some of those phrases might have their benefit in other dynamics, I try and look at this from the lens of, is there perhaps an insecure attachment issue that's at play in these particular dynamics? And though I am an Australian counsellor, I am not someone who is going to be responding to these letters as if I was with a client. I'm here to provide validation, yes, but I can't provide any diagnoses on these. So even if, a lot of people might understandably hear this and be like, well, that sounds like a narcissist. At best, I'll probably say, sounds a bit narky. I probably won't go any further than that out of respect to my ethical boundaries in regards to what I can and can't do. If you find this of benefit to you, fantastic. That's what I want. And if you want to submit your letter, you're very welcome to, once there is obviously availability per month. And I'll happily read out and share my own 2 cents as to what I think has gone on in your dating experience to offer you a sense of validation for what you've been through, and also to give other people listening a chance to feel like maybe this relates to what they've also experienced as part of collective healing. So with that all out of the way, let's dive in to the latest letter. So before we dive into this letter by Kate, I just want to take the opportunity to once again reintroduce my colleague, Amy. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself, everyone?
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be back. As you all know, I work with Ken. I'm an attachment coach, and I really love working with people to work on their secure attachment and to heal after brutal breakups. So I hope everyone is well, and I can't wait to dive into this letter. Thanks, Ken.
No, you're very welcome. Right, let's get straight into this. Now, just as a heads up for everyone who's listening to this is a two-part letter. We don't normally accept people's letters if they're over the word limit, but sometimes we'll negotiate and ask to be paid more for it. So this is an example of where we've got the letter and also an update to the events of what's happened, which sometimes can be really insightful because it gives us a bit of an understanding as to what life post breakup might actually look like in a lot of these cases. And let's just say well, I can say this definitively, it's never usually gotten better. For the person on the receiving end, they've often found a lot more clarity and understanding and recovered. But let's move straight into Kate's letter. All right. Dear Ken, thank you so much for everything you do. It has been so helpful for me to attempt to wrap my brain around everything that I have just gone through. You are very welcome, Kate. I met my now ex 3 years ago while we were standing in line waiting to see a Broadway show. He approached me and two of my friends, and we hit it off pretty quickly. He didn't get my number, but he found me on Instagram. We started sending each other DMs, and that quickly turned into texting. He said he would love to take me on a date before he was going back home to Indiana. Unfortunately, I was not free before he left, but he was planning a trip back to New York over the holidays, so we would be able to go on the date then. Over the next month, we texted and sent each other long voice messages back and forth to know one another. We started chatting on the phone and FaceTiming as well. By the time he came to visit at the end of December, he already told me he really liked me. We spent a week together and it was amazing. After that, we started FaceTiming daily, and a few weeks later, he asked me to be his girlfriend. We were both so excited. He came to visit me again, and we had an incredible time together, and he told me he loved me. Shortly after that, I was heading out of New York for a show that I was playing the lead role in, and he came and stayed with me for several weeks and saw the show more than anyone else I knew, including my parents. Whoa. He told me how in awe of my talent he was and how in love he was. I felt so lucky to find someone so incredibly loving, supportive, and kind. Soon after, I went to visit his family in Indiana. They warmly embraced me and I fit in with them easily. His mum passed away when he was in high school and he never had a good relationship with her. For his job, he had to move to Iowa. We took it in stride and I started going to visit him for months at a time. We made the distance work easily. We constantly communicated, and I was able to visit a lot because of the nature of my remote work and auditions being on tape. We talked about eventually living in New York. He was excited for me to meet and interact with his friends. He was making it work. I would support him at different company activities and events, and even participate if I was able to. We had so much fun together. We both said we had never been with someone where we could be so completely ourselves. Finally, a relationship where it's easy. We had the same interests, we never fought, and we were truly best friends. This continued for the entire first year we were together, and I spent Thanksgiving with his family, and he spent Christmas with mine. Before we get to the next bit, which seems like there's a plot twist, I just want to stop here and take a moment to, reflect on some of the things that Kate's shared thus far. Amy, do you want to start?
Yes. Well, unlike most of our letters, there have not been a whole bunch of red flags. In fact, I actually haven't detected any yet. Very cute, movie-worthy meet cute situation. I love that, the way you guys met. Although I won't spend too much time on all of the things I love because I know that this is going to take a turn. What I will say is that what I predict is there will be some sort of intimacy issues on his part that are probably going to be related, I would say, to his mother's unfortunate passing in high school. And not only that she passed, but that he didn't have a good relationship with her. There's almost no way that that's not going to affect someone later on in life in their romantic relationships. So I guess we will see that. But so far, I'm just seeing what seems to be a very secure, slowly building relationship. Nothing seems love bomby, nothing seems rushed, and it seems pretty sturdy at this point. What do you think, Ken?
I'm on the same page as you, Amy. Like, I mean, when I read this, it actually sounds really beautiful. Like, you guys have met, he's interacted with you via Instagram, you spend a significant time together. He asked to be, your boyfriend, or he wants you to be his girlfriend. He's supporting you with regards to your auditions and also your acting. And I think it's, what I love is the fact that it just seems like he's really, committed to you and to wanting to make this work. And it doesn't seem like there's any overt forms of love bombing. I guess the only thing that sort of does strike me as a bit of a sign that this could go shape of the pair is the fact that this has been mostly a long distance relationship. Now, it's not to say long distance relationships don't work, but they are notoriously the what I'd say the relationship of choice for a lot of avoidant attachers who are severe in their attachment style because again, control of intimacy, don't have to get too close and all that. And when I say that, I don't mean like they're actively choosing this because they want to, be malicious. It's more of it's just what's safe for them in their nervous system, so to speak. So, there's already a great deal of distance between you, but at the same time, it's not like he's activated yet. He's had some pretty significant moments with you where you've actually shared a lot of time together. Although I suppose, you know, I'm curious to see what happens post Christmas and what kind of occurs as we continue with this letter. So, unless you have anything else to say, Amy, shall we continue and see what happens?
Yeah, I will just say I totally agree. The only thing that might be like a pink flag, is the long distance relationship thing. And the trouble with these is that Ken is so right. It feels safer for avoidance to be in long distance relationships because there's this guaranteed buffer. And where that can get a little hairy down the line is that because there is this guaranteed buffer, it keeps the avoidance fears at bay in a sustainable, long enough way that their feelings can really develop and show for a longer period of time. So it's very possible in long distance relationships with avoidance where such deepening of the relationship can happen because there are longer periods of time where the relationship is building and the avoidant isn't deactivating because he always knows that he can rest easy on this guaranteed buffer of distance. But inevitably, a deactivation will happen. And sometimes it's even more painful in a long distance relationship because all of that time has been spent building and building and building, that the deactivation seems even more sudden and out of nowhere for the person on the receiving end.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree with everything you said. So, I also just want to make it very clear that, in light of the context of these letters, I'm not suggesting that long distance relationships are a pink flag or even a red flag, in general relationships. It's just that, not that I've read this letter in advance, but like it's like we're talking about usually avoidant discards and breakups. So usually long distance has been a theme that we've seen across a lot of these letters, which is why it's like, oh dear, this could be the start of trouble. Anyways, let's get back into Kate's letter. At the end of the year, he had a breakdown. He didn't know if he wanted to move to New York anymore, and therefore he thought we should break up. I didn't understand why he didn't bring this to me sooner so that it could be a conversation. However, I assured him that I did not want to live in New York forever and that I would be open to moving anywhere that we would both be happy. After a few days, he decided that he didn't want to break up and he declared that he would do anything he could to make me the happiest woman on the planet, no matter what. Okay, we're going to take a pause here. Fearful avoidant alert. Like, that is not a dismissive avoidant by any stretch of the imagination. That is, in my opinion, 100% fearful avoidant. And I'll tell you why. Because he panicked at the idea of losing you and he doubled down on trying to make anything work. And that is such a fear of abandonment that we normally see and is consistent with those that are in their fearful avoidancy. But the fact that he had a breakup urge around moving to New York is definitely indicative of that avoidant part that was doubting the relationship and the move. So that's my 2 cents. But I mean, I could be wrong. Amy, what are your thoughts on that?
Not to sound like a broken record, but I agree, Ken. Complete fearful avoidant alert. Really not what we see with dismissive avoidance. And yes, would a dismissive avoidant be triggered to pull back around a move? Yes, but he would probably have been triggered in other smaller areas. And like Ken said, this like hot and cold, and this immediate, regretting and communicating. It's a very fearful avoidant behavior. Fearful avoidants are usually they're so hot and cold so much more frequently because they are like more connected to their emotions and fears than dismissive avoidants are. So you will get a lot more emotional volatility and roller coasters with them usually. So fearful avoidant is, I think, what we're dealing with here. I concur.
Yeah, I think if it was a dismissive, we would have seen more pulling back subtly over the course of this entire relationship and possibly it being a case where he was making a lot more excuses about how busy he was with a lot of other things that were going on and probably break up with you abruptly and then move in with someone new and still try and keep in contact with you. I mean, that's one variation of many of these severe dismissive avoidant cases. But with this, nah, this is fearful avoidant territory. Anyways, after that, we got back to where we always were, blissfully in love. We started traveling a lot. It was so much fun. I felt so lucky, and he would constantly tell me he felt the same and that I was the love of his life and his best friend. Can I just say, I know I'm not trying to pause all the time now, but it's just like, oh, I'm so worried for Kate now because, I feel like we're going back on a high, and inevitably with a lot of these cases, oh God, when they crash and burn.
Oops. Yeah. I thought you were going to continue right away, but oh, yeah, I know. It's like when we were reading these sweet passages, it's giving me anxiety because I know, there's something coming. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reading this letter. And it's so right. It's like the higher you go, the harder, I guess, the fall from grace, the harder the crashes. And, these situations are they're brutal. They're absolutely brutal.
And so unfair too, because I'm sure that those are the sort of memories that keep you like I know for a fact that like those are the sort of memories where you look back and go, oh, did this person ever really love me? Did this person ever really care about me when I felt so blissfully in love? And I think it's also hopefully one of those moments where you can turn back and go, yeah, I'm pretty confident this person was in love in those moments, but everything that happened after that, well, that could be a very different story depending on what happens. But anyways, let's continue. I'm feeling panicky now. It stayed that way for about a year. Oh, wow. Then in November, we had good friends who got engaged, so we decided to go ring shopping. Oh, shortly after that, we found out that my dad actually had my grandmother's engagement ring for me. He told me he planned to ask my parents for the ring and their blessing over Christmas. A few weeks before Christmas, he suddenly wanted to spend Christmas with his family. He said he felt bad because he hadn't spent any holiday with them since Thanksgiving the previous year. Now, I understood that, but he also knew this when he agreed to spend Christmas with my family. On top of that, he had told me he was planning to get the blessing and the ring. I was incredibly hurt and upset, but I ended up deciding to spend Christmas with him and his family as I'd rather us be together than apart. Good on you, by the way, Kate, for expressing your hurt and your upset to him. That's very secure behavior. On New Year's Day, I asked him what he was most looking forward to this year, and he said, getting engaged. I was thrilled that he was still planning to propose. Now, at this point, now 2 years into the relationship, I spent more time with him in Iowa than I did in New York, and our lives were very intertwined. He was also managing my finance. Oh dear, he was also managing my finances for me. I don't think you made that point, for no reason. So now I'm really concerned about what's going to happen next. Fast forward to March, we had a trip planned to visit my family. I asked him if he was planning to get the ring and blessing. He said yes. Then, 2 days before we were supposed to leave for the trip, he told me that he had concerns and that he was only 99% sure about us and he wanted to be 100%. Oh no. The concerns were all things that were far off into the future and probably would never happen. And things like, I don't want to get married in New York, or you don't have my phone number What? I didn't understand. We would deal with these things if and when they happen. And what did my phone having his phone number memorized have to do with anything? When I tried to talk through this with him, he would say I was acting desperate. We decided that we should do premarital counseling. Maybe that would help him to feel more 100%. We started the counseling in June, and it was great. We were learning so much, and the pastor gave us tools for having a successful marriage. Okay, so that sounds like you went to a religious-based counselor. I mean, I've got nothing wrong with people doing that, but I mean, sometimes they may lack the attachment tools you might need in a situation like this. If they do, fabulous. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. We went on incredible trips over the summer to Alaska, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic, which was a trip we took with my family for my dad's 60th birthday. And we both said the relationship was the best it had ever been. He told me he was now at 100%. All right, let's take a pause here. I'm freaking out on behalf of Kate. Like, this is really scary shit. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I have anxiety throughout this whole letter because there are such high highs. And the thing is, right, like you guys know and Ken knows, when we're reading these letters, we are usually seeing very clear red flags right off the bat. Um, and the reason why this letter is so scary and I'm sure so painful for you, Kate, is that it seems like he is on board. It seems like he is, soon to be fiance of the year most of the time. But now we are seeing a lot of his FA deactivation things. And it's really interesting because he's going to counseling. He seems all in. He's being very communicative with you about it seems like his in the moment feelings and flip-flopping. Again, this is really a more FA expression of deactivation because with dismissive avoidance, there would be a slower, more quiet, still cold pulling back, but there wouldn't be this frequent communication of yes, I'm in, no, I'm out. Yes, I'm in, no, I'm out. I really hate how he told you that you were acting desperate. You were absolutely not acting desperate. You were acting completely secure, and he is 100% projecting on you in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's not okay. And again, you can also see that he's more fearful avoidant because he's taking all of these trips with you and your family, and he's very involved. And um, the topic of marriage didn't make him run at first. He was all in. He was talking to you about the ring. So you can really get the sense of that FA, like I'm completely all in or all out sort of flavor coming about over here. What do you think, Ken?
Yes, I love everything you've said, and I want to add something. It seems like he's been, dragging his feet in regards to getting your father's blessing, Kate, too. Like it seems like, post December, we've gotten to March and he's still got to do this and he hasn't done the conversation yet, too. And he's waiting for 100% certainty. This is classic relationship obsessive compulsive disorder that we see in people who have particularly a severe fearful avoidant attachment style. It's this real big concern and need for certainty with the partner you're choosing. And it's so scary for these individuals because they often feel like, oh, what if I make the wrong choice? This should be easier than this. Why am I not feeling more certain about this relationship? Maybe I should just, stop spending so much time with this person. And To kind of paint a picture of what this looks like in the brain, and I almost want to do illustrations of this for people in the future so that way they can really get a grip of like how it shows up in people with a fearful avoidant attachment style is you have to understand that when their anxiety is peaking, they like they're obviously going through moments where they're freaking out about, potential loss and not being able to make it work with you. But then they can have these avoidant, intrusive thoughts that come in and go, maybe you just don't like Kate. Maybe, you're actually not in love with her. She's kind of ugly, don't you know? She's kind of desperate. Like it's those little flaw finding thoughts that actually allow the avoidant attacher to find their way out of distress because often when they're getting closer to someone, they are feeling like, I can't live up to your needs. I'm not good enough for you. And these avoidant thoughts that start to creep in are their way of trying to help them to navigate away from those intense shame-provoking feelings. And if they continue sort of investing time with those avoidant thoughts, or if they try distracting them, that's what can often cause the infamous shutdown where they start just becoming hopeless about it all and go, I need to get out of here as soon as fucking possible. So, once again, this is an explanation, not an excuse. It is really a sign that this person, in this case, the guy that you're dating, Kate, he needs to seek out, someone who's a specialist. If I could go back in time and this is what I tell him to do, because when you're dealing with someone who has relationship OCD, they really need to get to the root cause, which is shame and a lot of trauma. Um, and if they don't, and they're still trying to play this whole like write down the pros and cons of trying to make this work, even if the con list is like full of nonsensical and irrelevant things, that will be the stuff that wins at the end of the day. Even if it's stuff like, oh, she doesn't memorize my number. That right there is a really beautiful example of, this part of him that's expecting perfection. My partner wouldn't be able to memorize my number. My partner would show up in this way. It's all flaw finding as a way of trying to help him justify an exit from a lot of the distress he's feeling internally. So, anyways, I've just done a little TED talk there, but apologies, Amy. I hope that's, added to those of you listening that this is what's probably going on for this guy.
Yeah, I really agree. And it's like, it's so important for you to remember, Kate, and anyone who's listening, when you have a really good relationship going and you guys are in love with each other and you're making plans, and then all of a sudden these excuses start popping up out of nowhere, they can feel so hurtful and
Mhm.
and they might even be like sort of attacks, like you don't have my number memorized, so you're not like, I don't know, trustworthy or conscientious enough for me. And like Ken said, flaw finding is an unconscious or subconscious defense mechanism that both dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance use as a coping strategy to gain distance from their person as a protective mechanism for control and for distance. Now, it's important to know that this is not something that they understand they are trying to do. It's something that's coming up. It's like their system is being flooded with messages of flaws, and they are being made to focus on these little things that never would really mean anything to begin with. And I think fearful avoidance are probably more aware that they're doing that than dismissive avoidance are.
Mhm.
And then also, just for anyone listening, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this, Ken, but I mean, what in life do we ever know is 100%? We don't. We're human beings. We have to live with a constant, our whole existence is uncertain. We quite literally don't know how much time we have on this planet, let alone if the person we're marrying is 100%. And also, even if they are today, we're fluid. We're all going to be growing and changing. So we're never going to know 100%. And I hope that for anyone listening, that this notion that you need to be 100% certain doesn't ever stop you from following something that could be really great.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think to anyone who's listening who might be a fearful avoidant, who's relating to the struggles here, I get it. I respect the fact that, there's a part of you that wants absolute certainty from feeling like judged, ashamed, embarrassed that you made the wrong choice. But one of the things that I want to just add to what Amy is saying is that a lot of that is just anxiety with making mistakes. And, usually if you're having a lot of that anxiety, it's actually a good sign because you're choosing someone who's probably less likely to treat you horribly when normally you're more inclined to go with people who treat you terribly because a lot of fearful avoidance, unfortunately, have more of a comfortability with people who are disruptive and chaotic. And it's not to say you obviously like those, it's more just to say that subconsciously that is your comfort zone. So if you're having these challenging thoughts and feelings, it's an opportunity for introspection. Hopefully, it doesn't result in you needing to jettison from the relationship and you leave your partner feeling traumatized. But it is what it is. And the best you can do in these cases is just, learn from them and hopefully get into therapy to heal because, you know, a lot of this stuff is coming up, in its own misguided way to protect you.
Yes, completely. And that is the whole thing with attachment styles is that we are being driven around by old protective mechanisms that we utilize to survive in childhood that are no longer serving us and in fact really hindering us. So we need to just learn better strategies and understand that it's better to heal and live life through through our true authentic self and what we want rather than through fear and just trying to survive from things that aren't even really a danger to us anymore.
Completely agreed. Completely agreed. All right, let's continue. I'm just breathing in deeply because I'm scared for Kate. All right. We had another trip planned to see my parents at the end of September, and he told me he was going to get the ring and the blessing. Until 2 days before, when he backed out with a new list. This time, the list included things like, I didn't have as much fun in Alaska as I wanted to, and that he doesn't like how much I sing in the car, and maybe he didn't want to marry an actress. He also told me, I'm laughing because this is classic sort of flaw finding, and it's not about you, Kate, it's about him, but I understand it would hurt to hear this. He also told me he didn't believe in unconditional love. Oh, I was devastated. And I told him I didn't know if I could keep going. Yeah, fair enough. How could he do this to me again? He begged and pleaded and cried and told me he just needed more time. We still had a few sessions left of our premarital counseling, so I encouraged him to bring everything up there or to talk to a friend and get some advice. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. However, we seemingly got through everything, and once again, both felt that our relationship was the best it had ever been. He told me his fears had subsided, and occasionally he would say things like, How are you not married yet? I would always think, aren't you glad I'm not, so that you can marry me? We finished the counseling in mid-November, and he told our counselor he was planning to get the ring in early December and propose before Christmas. He even asked our counselor if he would officiate the wedding next year and told friends and family of our plans. We finished the counseling on a Friday. Ironically, it was exactly 3 years from the day we met. We went out to a romantic dinner to celebrate. 2 days later, he woke up incredibly tense and stressed. At this point, I knew what this meant. I tried to stay calm and ask him if he was nervous about getting the ring and proposing. He said I was the best thing in his life and the best thing that had ever happened to him, and that he didn't want to break up but thought we should. Oh no. He also said that he spent the night going back and forth thinking he should just marry me, and he was crying and was a wreck. This time, he said he couldn't stand the idea of seeing my family more than once a year, and he also no longer wanted to have kids as they might disturb his sleep. He said I could find someone better. However, he could see himself coming after me in 4 years. Fuck me. I had promised myself that if he did this again, I was done. I told him I wanted to leave immediately, and he begged me to stay for 2 days until my originally planned flight, so I agreed. Over the next 2 days, we went back and forth on if we should break up or take a break. I felt like he was throwing away so much for so little, and that he was being dictated by his fears, and maybe he just needed more space. I just eventually decided that we should break up, mostly because I felt like that was the only way this relationship even had a prayer of working out. He kept saying he didn't want to lose me, but I felt like maybe if you lose me, you'll realize what you had and finally get out of your own way. He didn't tell anyone that we broke up for 2 weeks. Once he finally told his family, they texted and called me saying they were praying that we would get back together. His dad sent me lengthy messages about how bewildered he was by his son and how he had encouraged him to take some time, but then to bring me into the conversation and work through all of his concerns. And was there any chance I would take him back? He was praying that his son would agree to do whatever it took. Okay, let's take a pause here. Kate, I am so sorry. I mean, there's not really anything I want to add in terms of what he was doing because I think the explanations were made earlier for what's going on. But fuck me, what he was saying to you and just the amount of, and you could just read it in his body language, like far out. This is so unfair to you. I've got to tell you though, you know, I love your commitment to just be like, nope, this is my boundary and I'm breaking up if you're going to continue like this. You've behaved in a very fucking secure way. Like, I'm really impressed with how you've handled this.
Yes. Oh my God. You deserve a medal, Kate, for how you behaved throughout this so far. Extremely, I mean, not only secure behavior, extremely secure behavior. And oh my God, I have to say my jaw was on the floor when I was reading this letter first and passing over it again now, my jaw is still on the floor. This is brutal. This is honestly one of the most brutal situations that I think that we've read through or that I've been here for. Um, I mean, he is quite literally in one day going from talking about proposing and getting the ring almost in the same breath, actually, and then saying that he thinks, you should break up and going back and forth. Um, I mean, it's insane. Excuse me, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, and forgive my language, but so I made a few notes here. You know, I still agree we are 100% in fearful avoidant territory. And again, that is evidenced by the extreme hot and cold flip-flopping, literally within like the same conversation. An interesting thing here, and it's it's so annoying. And also just want to remind everyone, I am a former FA, an intense FA. So there is the FAs have this thing that I've heard so many times in client sessions where they will say to their partner, I just think that we don't have enough fun. I don't think that this was like exciting enough. And it's so funny because FAs have this like very big need for like fun and novelty. And it is obviously like to the extreme sometimes. And this standard for everything to be like super duper fun and new all the time is completely immature and ridiculous. But it's something that I see all the time. Another thing is that obviously now he's giving us a very big insight into his wounding. He doesn't believe in unconditional love. That just tells you right there. I would imagine that if he doesn't believe in unconditional love, my thoughts are that he either hasn't witnessed it in his own life from his own parents modeling, and we know that he lost his mom, unfortunately, in high school, or he hasn't experienced it. And that's not to say that his father and mother didn't try to give him unconditional love, but there's a very big difference between the love that parents intend to give their children and think they're giving their children versus the messaging and the feeling of love and support and connection that the child feels. And so, if you're someone who doesn't believe in unconditional love, there's a chance you haven't experienced it. And then there's a chance that you're definitely just not going to believe that it's possible in the future. And again, it's this all or nothing thinking that fearful avoidants have, where they think something has to be 100% exciting, amazing, perfect, or it's, not good enough. And as we know, like Ken was saying, that's very indicative of relationship OCD. And again, if there is this hyper extreme response to something, again, that it's very indicative of trauma. Um, Another interesting thing is that fearful avoidance, all avoidance, but fearful avoidance also have this very big fear of being trapped. And of course, getting married, it's becoming more real. We're talking more about the ring and asking for permission. And so I would imagine his trapped wound is coming up. And also at the thought of having kids, I think fearful avoidants are the least likely attachment style to have kids or to want kids, and that's even including dismissive avoidance. But all this to say, this is brutal, and I'm so sorry that you went through this. What do you think, Ken?
I really have nothing more to add to what you said, and what you added was brilliant. And Kate, I'm so sorry you've gone through this. This is so bad. Like, it's just, especially as everything was mounting, you've done all the right things. You've gone to the couples counseling. And look, I'm going to give this pastor, huge credit. It sounds like he's been instrumental in, supporting you both. And just to be very transparent and clear, like I said, I am not people, not seeking out pastoring counselors or anything like that. You want to do that, by all means, go for it. But like I said, it's just that, I worry sometimes that if people don't have that attachment knowledge, it might not necessarily be practical at times. But like I said, this guy sounds like he's done a fabulous job in terms of, bringing you both to the table. So I can only imagine how disappointing, devastating. And I can understand that thought of, well, maybe actually if I break up, this will actually help him understand what he's lost. And In a way, yes, it will, but I also could understand too, because this guy has such extreme flip-flops between fear of intimacy and fear of abandonment. He may feel devastated that you're leaving him and choosing to back away. He might feel relief initially, but he also might feel a sense of shame, guilt later down the line. I'm not blaming you for what you did. I think you did the very secure thing. I think you handled this brilliantly, Kate, in spite of obviously how it must have felt like chopping off your own limb to do this, to save yourself, from going through this. It's almost like going through premeditated grief. It's like part of you is just like, oh no, like you have to sort of build yourself into preparing to actually to cut this relationship off. Shit. Anyways, let's continue. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. So they were talking about, oh yeah, so the dad was basically praying that his son would agree to do whatever it take to get back with Kate. And Kate says, I cannot tell you how much I appreciated hearing this from the family. I agree. I thought, actually, I got to give the dad credit where it's due. I thought the dad was saying some very insightful things and also very affirming of the relationship, because that's not always the case for a lot of fearful, avoidant parents. They can have very enmeshed parents who aren't, really helpful. Any case, they also added how much they adored Kate, how a great match we were, what a blessing our relationship was, all the things that I felt as well. After another week, I went to see my ex and explained to him how simple I thought it would be for us to work through this. He just has to bring me in on his fears and concerns before they consume him and allow me to help him work through them. Oh, not to be harsh, but like, oh, you sweet child. Is that what you thought would be able to resolve this? Only I'm chuckling because for those of us who have learned the hard way through going through these cases, what you did was it makes sense, like so much practical sense. But I mean, I'll throw this over to you, Amy. It's like that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yes. And honestly, this line of thinking, again, is so incredibly secure of you, Kate, and good on you. And honestly, this little bit right here is why these situations with people with avoidant attachment are so hard to go through and to process after. Because we think when we're coming from a secure or anxious background that, oh, well, there's just like a communication issue here. And if you just let me in on what you're thinking in the moment, we can talk through it and then we can work through it. And these are so, these are things that we can so clearly work out if we have this information in real time and can come to the table. And the thing is, part of what makes insecure attachment is that, especially avoidant, but also very anxious, is that inability to connect with the underlying fear and feeling that is sponsoring these things in the moment. Not only articulate it to the other person, your partner, but articulate it to yourself. Understand what's going on in yourself so that you can say, hey, I'm feeling a little scared. I'm having second thoughts. I'm feeling cold feet. Can we talk it out? That's what secure people do. And that's amazing and beautiful. And that's why secure people have so much easier and healthier relationships. But explaining where you're coming from is inherently vulnerable, especially for dismissive avoidants who are afraid of their own emotions and realizing their own emotions and discovering them and exploring and then communicating them, but also for fearful avoidance. Now, I think it's easier for fearful avoidance, but it's still not easy. And the thing is, fearful avoidants are often very like, they think they know everything. They think that their instincts are right. They're feeling them so strong. But just because you have a gut feeling and you're feeling it very strong does not mean that it's coming from a secure place. And that's why I don't like when people post things like, if your gut feels off or follow your gut in situations where it's a matter of your safety, abso-freaking-lutely get the hell out of there and follow your gut. But when you have insecure attachment, your gut needs to be recalibrated because the things that are good for you and bad for you are all mixed up, and your gut is not a reliable compass in those moments. So, just to finish up my little blurb here, good on you for wanting to come to the table and expecting him to want to speak about these things. We should have those expectations from our partner. That is secure. But it so rarely goes that way, to your point, Ken.
Yeah, that was beautifully explained. I've nothing else to add to that. That was so well articulated. So, He agreed, but said that he wasn't ready to do that just yet and wasn't sure he ever would be. Maybe if I approached him about it another week or month, he would be. But he was also excited about the idea of meeting someone now, even though he felt like nothing would be better, but maybe it'd be different. He said he loved dating me, though. Okay, great. So basically, he said he might be happier if he dates someone new, but he's unsure if he wants to, move on from the positive memories he's had with you. I understand where he's coming from in that, again, this is that those oscillating feelings, feeling of relief, dating someone new. Oh, that feels nice, but still want to hold on to you because I really like what we had together. Classic ROCD. During this conversation, I found out that while he was at work over those 2 days that we were in the midst of breaking up, he had been spying on me via the drop-in feature on the Alexa. I had called a trusted friend to try to process everything he had dumped on me, and he listened in from work. He said he wanted to hear what I was saying because he wanted to know how I really felt about it. And then he threw that in as another reason he didn't want to work through anything right now, as I was making him look bad. But then he told me he loved me so much and that he was making this decision with his head, and I was making my decisions with my heart. I just have too many issues, he said. But maybe at some point, God would move him to change his mind, but he also doesn't want to be swayed by anyone. Ugh, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to come back to what this guy was saying. I have never been so flabbergasted in my entire life. Yeah, I bet. This was someone that I had trusted implicitly and loved so purely. I would have done anything for him. I feel that in my bones, as you've said that. I do not know what to think or how to process any of this. He seems to have turned into a different person overnight. And I am not sure what I'm more afraid of, him coming back or never coming back. Now, there's part two to this. We'll get to that in just a minute, but we want to round out here and just say, Jesus fucking Christ. I'll be really quick with my observation, which is the whole needing to stalk you through Alexa, classic haunting, although that's been taken up a huge notch because normally avoidant attachers don't go to that, degree of stalking you. Ironic when they usually throw the whole like you're the stalker when they break up, but he didn't seem to do that on this case. But one thing that I think really stood out to me was the whole thing of like, I didn't want to look bad. That's classic shame. That's a real feeling of like, I don't want to be a bad person. So, and that's a core wound that many avoidant attachers, particularly dismissive leaning fearfuls had. And I would definitely say this guy is leaning more into his avoidancy than he's anxious in his fearful avoidancy, if that makes sense. Amy, what are your thoughts on this?
Whew. I mean, th this is particularly brutal because yeah, it's gone so far down the line. The relationship has been building over a good amount of time. Everything is great. You're literally in premarital counseling. This man has told you that he wants to marry you. He wants to ask your dad for his blessing, and you're talking about the ring. And then in the same breath, he says he's not sure if he wants to break up, but he thinks you should. And then he has the audacity to say that he's thinking about dating other people and thinks it might be better, even though it might be different, but he loved dating you. The thing is, you would think from that little passage that this is a 3-month relationship and you tried it out, but it wasn't working. No, no, no. He's literally saying these things to you after 3 years, right before or after you guys have discussed getting married. This to me, honestly, and again, I actually haven't read through the update part of the letter, so I'll be reacting to that in real time. I am hoping that you have no contact with this man because I have to say, regardless of how good this relationship was when it was good, this behavior is so volatile and so emotionally unstable that absent a good amount of therapy, he is not, I think, an emotionally safe and dependable person to invest any more of your two most precious resources, which are, of course, your time and your heart, your life force energy, your mental and emotional real estate. Um, you can tell how fearful avoidant he is because he is swinging. Not only is he hot and cold, he is literally swinging from one extreme to the next, one being let's get married, we're in premarital counseling, and the next being I think we should break up and I can't wait to date other people. It's almost unbelievable. Interesting thing about the spying on you through Alexa, that is such a fearful avoidant thing to do. I honestly don't think a dismissive avoidant would ever do that to anyone because they are so protective of their own privacy that they really find that to be so sacred that they're actually very respectful of other people's privacy and autonomy. And so, like, I just don't even think that a dismissive avoidant would even think to do that. Also, this preoccupation with him looking bad, again, a very fearful avoidant thing. And it's oh, it's funny, not funny, haha, but it's funny that he thinks he's making a decision with his head and not his heart when he's literally, quite literally making decisions straight from his wounded inner child. And the last thing I'll say here before we move on to the update portion of the letter is this thing that I know I experienced in my fearful avoidantness, and I've seen a lot and I've learned a lot about is fearful avoidance will often get to this point with someone and then like cut and run because they are often looking for someone to heal them. They
Mm.
are aware of their wounds, right, Cam? They are aware of their wounds and their inner chaos and their insecurities and their fears around love. And so they are constantly looking for someone to soothe that in them, to heal them. And they're constantly testing people to see how far they can push someone before they leave them. And when a fearful avoidant is with someone and they are looking for someone to calm the seas inside of them, to heal their inner chaos, to heal their shame, they are never going to find it because it doesn't exist. The person that is going to save and heal us is ourselves. And so when fearful avoidance inevitably get to that point where they realize, oh shit, I'm with this person and they're great, but they haven't been able to heal me. How dare they? Now they don't realize that this is happening, but this is when they start again with like the flaw finding and the, you know what, I think I actually could, take my chances with somebody else. And this isn't fun enough and this isn't good enough, because they go into relationships unconsciously and subconsciously expecting this person to heal them, to take away their chaos. And it doesn't happen. And then when that doesn't happen, instead of introspecting, which some people do. Some people are like, oh my God, this is me. I have issues. I need to go heal, and amazing on them. But a lot of times, what you will see is the fearful avoidant will just project all of these things onto you and make it seem like you were not enough and that there are this laundry list of little silly things that's wrong with you, and that's why, and that they need to go find that other perfect person out there, which does not exist. So I'm so sorry that this happened to you, Kate.
That was so well explained. I'm like, my jaw is on the floor off the back of listening to what you just described. Because to add to that, I think that it's also one of those things that when a fearful avoidant is disappointed that their partner didn't live up to their expectations, particularly the dismissive leaning ones, it's very easy for them to rationalize it's your fault. You're the reason this isn't working out. It's that it's that very turbulent inner child that's feeling disappointed, let down again. You weren't there to be there for them. You weren't there to heal them and to take this pain away for them too. So really, the inner child is running the show. Last thing I'll say before we jump to part two is what a slap in the face when he's like, but maybe at some point God would move me to change my mind. And I don't want to be swayed by anyone. It's like, what? Like, it's such a airy fairy thing to say. And even though many fearful avoidance say variations of that, I think to bring God into that is so unfair. Like, look, I'm a man of my own spiritual faith, but I think to say, like, at some point, the invisible man in the sky, woman in the sky, person in the sky, will potentially change my mind. Like, if you're hearing that and you're not aware of the attachment stuff, you might just think, fuck you. Like, how can you bring an ethereal entity into our relationship like this? Like, why are you abdicating any sense of control over your own emotions and just leaving it in the hands of chance? Like, this is so unfair and so cruel. And I have to say, one thing I've noticed about this language is I feel like he's really disconnected with how hurtful his language is to you. And I know for a fact that the dismissive leaning fearful avoidance, when they're running on empty emotionally in their cup, they're very selfish. They're looking to meet their emotional needs by whatever means necessary, and they're not usually able to think outside of themselves because they're so fixated on getting their own fill from people around them, which is not to say they're malicious. It's not to say that they're going around there, chasing to get supply like a narcissist. It's more just to say that they can often be very unaware of the gravity of how their actions impact other people. even if they have a very strong feeling of guilt and shame over some of their actions and behavior, they may not be able to really relate to what their actions are doing to you at an emotional level.
Yes, I so agree with that. It's true. And it's like you said, they're somewhat in this survival mode. They're deactivating, they're focusing on trying to calm their own chaos. And so that can lead them to be very short and hurtful and cold and say things that sound like they're a different person. And also, it's so interesting that you said that, Ken, about him bringing God into this and like sort of putting the responsibility onto this God or spirituality or the universe. That is also, I've seen such a fearful avoidant thing to do where it's like, um, it's like I can't I don't know what to do. I'm going in circles. I can't trust myself. I can't trust you. I don't know what the truth is, but somebody out there will guide me in the right way, or the universe will step in and sort of tell me what's right or put me where I'm supposed to be. And it's like I kind of got a little embarrassed when I read that because that is definitely a belief that I used to have, and that is a belief that I used to throw out there. And I'm only self-disclosing to purposely relate to you, Kate, to bring shed more light onto this. That is definitely something that I thought and that I used in relationships to buy me more time to explain to people why I wasn't all in. And I would say, like, you know, I, I mean, I might have even said this. I don't know if I've said this sentence, but I definitely had the idea that, like, you know what, if this was supposed to be, the universe would just let me know. The universe would literally email me or send me like a letter or a text. And it's like, no, 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 sweetheart, you have to do the work. And guess what? We're never going to know if anything's 100%. But it just highlights, and it's interesting. I missed this before, but he even said to you, which is interesting because this, I think, is the first insight that he's given us into his awareness of his issues. But he plainly said, I just have too many issues. So, I think he said that for a reason. I think he's trying to let you know that this is just a sign of his inner chaos. This is clearly not a well thought out, logical line of thinking that he has been following this whole time. It's so clearly driven by fear, and so much so that he is asking God to come in and, put what's right in front of him. And here's the thing. I too am also spiritual in my own way. So I'm not mocking at all. I'm not mocking at all the idea of God guiding anyone or the universe guiding anyone. And I'm not mocking him for using it this way. But to me, and I agree with Ken, the way he is using it is sort of like a shield to avoid doing his own work.
Yep, completely agree. Let's do part two. Are you ready, Amy?
I'm ready.
All right. So Kate starts part two. She goes, Hi, Ken. If you can believe it, I'm sure you can. Even more has happened since I wrote my letter, and I wanted to add a follow-up. Can I just say, as a preface to my thoughts and feelings, Kate, I'm so concerned for your well-being. I hope you're protecting yourself because you don't deserve to go through any more of this. Over Christmas, my ex's family sent me Christmas presents and included a letter saying how much they love me and that I was still part of the family. That is beautiful. That was very lovely. Kate goes on to say, it was incredibly kind, but also just broke my heart even more. Yeah, I bet it would. All I could think was, what was this relationship? What was this relationship simply too? What I think that question had to be, was this relationship simply too good? We have everything in common. His family clearly adores me and doesn't want me to let me go. Why is he so willing to let me walk away? Well, short answer is it's for those reasons that this is exactly what's going on, which doesn't make rational sense. But from an avoidant perspective, under the lens of attachment theory, yeah, it makes sense there, even though it's cruel to be on the receiving end of. However, on New Year's Eve, when I still had not heard anything from him after, I tried to repair the relationship. I decided that I was leaving this in 2024 and not going to carry this into 2025 with me. Boy, was that naive. No, to your credit, a lot of this stuff usually takes a while to finalize and to put that full stop in the chapter of the book, so to speak, of your life. But great attitude. 2 weeks into the new year, my ex flew halfway across the country, showed up at my apartment unannounced with my things, and he left 2 suitcases of stuff with the doorman. Of course, I had no idea that he was there, so I was out running errands and I bumped into him in the street. I was so unbelievably shocked and confused. I bet that put you in a freeze response. I asked him, what are you doing here? And he said, I told you I was coming to New York this weekend. Now, he had told me in November, right after we broke up, that he might come to New York over this weekend for a concert he was interested in going to. I had the date in the back of my mind, but since I didn't hear from him, I was, of course, shocked that he was in New York and in my neighborhood. I would have expected some sort of text from him to say, Hey, I'm coming and I'm planning to bring you your things. Would you like to see me? Also, I still had his things at this point, so I would have thought that he would want his things back and would have coordinated all of this with me. He did not understand my being upset or confused. However, he asked me if I wanted to go sit and talk somewhere, as he still had to set up for a meeting with his boss that he was having in 30 minutes. I agreed. And when we sat down, he said, My dad was giving me shit last night about all of this. I bet that makes you really happy. He was so cold and nasty, I literally could not believe it that I almost burst into tears right then. I didn't even know what to say, so I told him that his dad had sent me Christmas presents. Then he went on to moan about how he will probably die alone now because I've set the bar too high. I was so confused. I told him I was more than willing to make things work with him and I could not have made it easier for him. Then he proceeded to ask me if I hated him. I said, No, but I hate that you lied all throughout our premarital counseling and strung me along for a year when it seems now like you never really had intentions of asking me to marry you. He said he didn't lie, he just changed his mind. I could not believe how much he was minimizing it. He then proceeded to tell me that he didn't want to have a conversation with me if I was just going to be disrespectful. His meeting with his boss was starting, so I just got up and left. Okay, let's take a pause here. Okay, I'm going to be inflammatory. So brace yourselves, everyone's. Block your ears if you want to not hear me swear. Fuck him. Seriously, what a see you next Tuesday. I am so angry on your behalf, Kate, with what he was saying. And I can, strip this apart and be like, there's the I'm not good enough, I'm a bad person wound. There's the, fear of abandonment. There's the whole, projection. But I just want to say, fuck the psychoanalysis, just fuck him. That's my 2 cents so far. What are your thoughts, Amy?
Literally everything you just said. Every single F-bomb and add 10 more. My jaw is on the floor. It has been so much of this letter, and I love that you just got up and left. It is unbelievable. Honestly, this passage makes me think, I'm jotting notes as we're going through the letter. This passage makes me think this man has just been pretending to be an adult this entire time that you knew him,
Yes.
and this is who he really is. He's actually a man child, and I'm sorry, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I kind of do for you, Kate. Fact of the matter is he's extremely emotionally intelligent. And you can even see the wounded child here. He's like, do you hate me? Like, oh, great. Now I'm going to be screwed because you set the bar so high. And my dad was giving me shit last night. I bet you're really happy. Like, what is he talking about? Like, his friend's stolen bicycle? Like, bro. And again, I don't know how old you guys are, but if you were old enough to take, pastoral counseling and talk about being married, then you are old enough, both of you, for him to not be acting like a sixth grader who's like pissed. Um, I'm so angry for you, Kate. I'm so turned off by his behavior. And I would almost hope that you got up and left here and never spoke to him again. I don't think that that's the case, but this is uh, everything that Ken just said. That's exactly how I feel.
This is
Awful.
like textbook severe avoidant categorization. It's like low to no accountability, low to no emotional availability, you know, lots of shame, narcissistic tendencies and behavior, you know, not wanting to introspect and a whole host of other things. Like I could read out that criteria again, but it's right here in Kate's letter. Like, I mean, fuck me. And it's so what I find about this also is the audacity. Like, how selfish was he to just not even communicate that he was going to go visit her, but then he sits it down because he wants to have a chat about how he's feeling so angry that his dad was, mad at him for what he'd done. It's like, bro, you did this to yourself. It's not Kate's fucking fault. And then, Kate hasn't done anything to, collude or to get in, here. Like, also, can I just say, this is really dangerous because if I've seen some fearful avoidance do this, again, severe ones, where they might be like looking up narcissism and think, oh, Kate's smear campaigning and triangulating with my dad. Like they're trying to make me feel bad and gaslight me into thinking that I'm the one who's the problem. It's that real defensiveness when they're trying to like avoid any pain and accountability for what's going on here. And it's just amazing the stories this man is telling himself to avoid any shame.
Yes, and it's so interesting because I feel like, if this is again such a fearful avoidant thing, because, unfortunately, fearful avoidants usually do have more of a trauma history, and so that results in more emotional volatility and a bigger sense of chaos inside. And so you can really see that here because he is acting like such a bratty, like selfish, entitled child with like a chip on his shoulder, even though he's the one who caused all of this. And I hate that this conversation even came about because you happened to bump into him on the street and how he was like, well, like I have something in 30 minutes, but let's just sit down and like I could sit down and talk. It's like, no. I mean, I understand why you spoke to him. I wish that you just ignored him. But again, I don't even know if I'd be able to behave that way if I were in this position. It's so hard. But if he were just like a straight up dismissive avoidant, honestly, I have to say, and again, I'm reminding our fearful avoidant listeners that I come from a very fearful avoidant background. I do think that a lot of the times dismissive avoidants like have more humility in these situations and more
Right.
self-awareness in these situations where like a dismissive avoidant is not really going to try to like gaslight you or turn the table on you in a situation in person where this is so obvious. Like if he was just straight up DA, I think he would be like I fucked up or like I messed up, like I'm sorry I hurt you or like just be cold, but like he wouldn't be actively trying to flip the script and like blame things on you and be nasty and combative and like a brat. So I'm so pissed.
I completely agree with everything you said. Whilst there are obviously some severe DAs who might go to the length of blame shifting and gaslighting, etc., you wouldn't have had any of this sort of patterning that's been read throughout the previous letter as well as part two. Like we just wouldn't have gotten to this stage. Like it would have been played out very differently to this. There would have been other stuff that would have been going on the side, like maybe, affairs, maybe a lot of, starting a new family on the side, that sort of a thing, blaming the partner for like, not ever making it work and how the relationship is fucked. Like that's sort of DA territory on like the extreme severe end. But this, nah, I'm gonna just go back to what you said, Amy. Bratty fucking behavior. All right, let's keep going. He texted me a little while and apologized for that interaction not going so well and asked me if I wanted to see him later in the weekend so we could talk and also so he could get back his things if I hadn't thrown it all away. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to give him another opportunity to upset me, but I also really wanted to stand up for myself and for my family as he'd said some horrible things about them during the breakup. I eventually decided that I'd write out what I wanted to say, read it to him, and if he didn't have anything good to say, he could just leave with his things after that. I also started unpacking my things that he brought from his apartment and he included an empty jar of peanut butter. What the fuck? That's disgusting. He ended up coming over as he was on his way to the airport. The gist of what I read to him explained that I was unbelievably hurt by how he lied to me and manipulated me. He begged me over and over to give him more time and to trust him and be patient with him. And I, of course, gave it to him because I wanted the relationship to work. But that ultimately led to more lies and a relationship that ended in betrayal. After I said my piece, he broke down in tears and told me how right I was and begged me to forgive him. He told me how lonely he was without me and he lost his best friend and how we had something that was so rare and so special and how he thought the breakup was a mistake every day since it had happened. However, he then said that part of the reason he lasted so long was because he would sometimes get annoyed or angry with me and hide it really well, I lying about how he really feels. And on occasion, when he would get annoyed like this, he would think, oh, I should just break up with her. He believed that because he had those thoughts that meant he must not be committed enough. I told him I didn't think the issue was that he got angry or annoyed. I also got angry and annoyed with him from time to time. The issue was not addressing it. That makes for a dynamic where he would obviously start resenting me. He didn't seem to agree. He then started kissing me and it got very intense. Now, not to say too much information, but at one point I thought he was going to throw me onto my bed and we were going to have sex. It was incredibly overwhelming. He then begged me to go to the airport with him so that we could spend more time together. He paid for my train ticket to go with him and he held my hand and told me how amazing and special I was the entire way there. I kept encouraging him to take some time, talk to his family about everything, and honestly, just get some help processing everything, as it seemed to me he really hadn't done that yet. Yeah. When we got to the airport, he said, "Don't let the thought of me coming after you stop from meeting someone better." I said, "I won't." But in my mind, I was thinking, I'm not opposed to you coming back as someone better either. He then proceeded to text me from the flight because he wanted to make sure that I got home safely. It was really nice. I actually had quite a bit of hope for us at that point. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Oh, like just I'm gonna have to need I'm probably gonna need a therapy session off the back of this. Like I'm having secondhand trauma just reading this. Amy, do you want to take a moment just to like talk and to share your thoughts on this? Because I feel so sorry for Kate.
Well, I think I will join you. Can we have a group therapy session, Ken, you and I? Maybe we can get a group discount. I mean, this is everything that we just said in our prior commentary times 10.
And love bombing. Can I just say massive love bombing?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? This to me is just screaming. He is feeling guilty, rightfully so, about the mess that he's made and the way he's treated you, Kate. And he is trying so hard to absolve himself of the shame and guilt that he feels and the confusion that he feels. I kind of am also getting the sense that he's pissed at himself for making a mess of something that was so good. And I think that he's trying to get something from you. I think what he's trying to get from you in these interactions is number one, that he's not a bad guy, that you forgive him, that you don't hate him. And number two, I honestly think that he is trying to find something in you to confirm his decision to leave. Like, I think he is trying to convince himself that he did the right thing and that he's not a bad guy. And I think he's actually getting really frustrated that he's not finding that. Um, it's so manipulative, it's so wounded, it's so immature. And honestly, like, I don't see what he could ever do from this point on that would make him trustworthy enough for you to have him in your life. Like, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is just awful. And again, you can see he is so flip-floppy. He is quite literally flip-flopping hot and cold, like in the same sentence, which is something that we don't see with just like moderate FAs. Like he's got some severe stuff going on.
Completely agreed. I can understand why you might have had a bit of hope for both of you at this point because you're probably high on oxytocin and you're trauma bonded. You're vulnerable. You know, he just fucking love bombed the shit out of you by making out with you very intensely. I'm not surprised you thought you might have been having sex off the back of that. Like, that's an intense makeout session and very emotionally manipulative. Like, this guy, as Amy was saying, was trying to absolve himself. He was not thinking about how you're feeling in that moment. I can tell you that. Doesn't mean that he's a bad person or a narcissist. That's up to the debate. Everyone can, talk about that in their own time. Wonderful. But that's kind of conjecture. At this point, I'm like, oh God, this guy is so emotionally manipulative. Anyways, but then the next day, he texted me out of the blue and said, "I wish I'd kissed you more." I responded and said, "It was obvious that you wanted to, but it's probably best that you didn't." He said then, "It's wrong of me to give you that impression." All I could think at this moment was, huh? What impression? You literally just said it and you were all over me. So I just responded with, "Why?" And he said, "I think you should probably know that I'm talking to." Oh my fucking God. I think you should probably know that I'm talking to someone. I know that's not something you want to hear, and it's too early to know if it's going to work out, but I don't want to let a mistake like us kissing be the reason it doesn't. Fuck him so much. Like, oh, okay. I need a moment. Amy, do you mind covering for me while I recover?
You know, I'm gonna fast forward a second. I was telling Ken because this is where I stopped reading before we started recording, and I was telling Ken, your jaw is going to hit the floor. My jaw is on the floor. And the next sentence in this letter reads, "My jaw hit the floor." Kate, our jaws are also on the floor with you. The audacity, I mean, just for every like this is again above and beyond like normal middle of the road fearful avoidant behavior. Like is all of this fearful avoiding? Yes, but to make out with somebody, to say all these things, and not just somebody, someone who you were with for 3 years, who you were quite literally in premarital counseling with, to come back, drop off the stuff, have this talk, hold hands, kissing, texting in the train, and then literally saying, I mean, like, okay, he texts you, I wish I'd kissed you more. And then you were like, yeah, like it was great, but, best that you didn't. And then he was like, but I hope I didn't give you the wrong impression. Like, bro, get it together. I'm sorry. Kate, I hope, and maybe you are because it seems like you have a good amount of security. I hope that you have fast forwarded to the point in healing where you are so grossed out by his behavior, where you are so turned off by this man child. And again, I know I'm sounding derogatory and I'm being mean, but here's the thing. Like Ken said, are we saying he's a bad person or a narcissist? Well, do we know that? No, we don't know if he's a narcissist or not. That's not what we're saying. Are we saying he's a bad person? No. But the thing is, people don't need to be bad people for them to be extremely bad for you, for them to be extremely dangerous to be in a relationship with. And the fact of the matter is, we can love people, we can understand that they have trauma, we can make excuses or understand their behavior, and at the same time, never fucking speak to them again, excuse my French, because he is dangerous and he is immature. And Kate, I hope that if you ever think of this man, and we still have more of the letter, so I will zip it up for a minute, but I hope that when you think of this man, you don't picture this like secure, masculine, like protective, wonderful, emotionally mature man who like, left you and like broke your heart. I hope when you think of him as his like wounded, like adolescent self. And you can have compassion for that, but you can also say, oh, I have compassion for that wounded person. And at the same time, that wounded young teenager is obviously not somebody I would ever want to be romantically entangled with because that's what's happening. This is not grown-up behavior. This is not grown man behavior. This is extremely wounded behavior, and it's not okay. It's not okay because it's very damaging. It's awful. I mean, oh, okay, Ken. Now I need to take a breath.
I'll let you chill, because I completely agree with everything you said. I'm still like flipping the bird multiple times at this guy. I'm like, put him on that Facebook thing where you demonize exes for being annoying. You know that one where they like, I think it's mostly for women where they go dating and it's like, have you dated this guy? Put him on there and make a shame post, share the letter and be like, this man, watch out for him. He's got attachment insecurities. Anyways, don't do that if you like, don't actually do that if it's inappropriate. Or if you do, I didn't tell you to do it. Just don't involve me. Anyways, jokes aside. Um, After this, I basically told him I was shocked and truly heartbroken that he would say all of the things that he did about me in our relationship and act the way that he did while he was simultaneously talking to someone new. At this point, I can only describe his response as a complete spiral out of control. Well, that wouldn't be anything new. He started sending me text after text after text saying how he was sorry for being so comforting and that he was only saying the things that he did and acting the way that he did because he was caught up in the moment. Oh, and why was I acting like this was, and sorry, and why was I acting like this was totally out of left field for him to even be entertaining the idea of dating someone else. But then proceeding to tell me that he told the person that he's talking to that he's not ready to date and it's not even really a romantic thing right now. And that he only said that us breaking up was a mistake because objectively, maybe it is because how will he ever find someone who loves him as much as I do? But he was actually still glad that we broke up. Then he said that it was not helping anyone for us to be communicating anymore and that things were getting out of control. After about 35 texts in a row, he said, goodbye, Kate. Jesus. Yeah, goodbye, Kate. And then sent a picture of us from when we started dating. I know it was from then because he still had his hair on his head. Also, he's balded. Well, I guess all that anxiety went to his head. I know it's a very tough. By the way, that is not me talking to anyone who's got male pattern baldness or is going bald. That is not there for that. I'm just having a dig at this guy because I'm really mad at him. Several hours later, he texted me again to tell me that he hopes that I believe him, that he didn't mean to be so inconsiderate of my feelings the night before with how affectionate he was being, and that he hopes that someday I can look back on our relationship fondly and extend him some forgiveness and grace. I told him, all I've done is given you forgiveness and grace. Why else would I have even considered getting back together? I then told him I hope that someday we could have a better conversation. That it seems like he still needs a lot of time to process everything, and to please let me know if he ever wants to talk. A week after that, his family was having a huge celebration for his dad's 80th birthday. I knew that his brother was planning to confront him about everything because I'd been speaking with his sister-in-law, the brother's wife, about everything that had happened. I found out from them that after his brother attempted to simply ask him what happened between the two of us, he quite literally ran away. Can I just make a point there to say that is so common? A lot of fearful avoidance, if they're called out on their shit by friends and peers who have some connection to, let's say in this case, Kate, can, you know, the avoidant partner who committed the breakup, the discard, will often run from any form of accountability because it freaks them out. So this is very consistent, unfortunately, and it's just shitty behavior, very immature. But I'm not going to use immaturity as a way of like saying he's just a child to like let him off the hook. He's a man, he should know better. He moved his flight to be early the next morning and left in the middle of the night without telling anyone. He literally ran away from his dad's 80th birthday because he could not stand to be confronted by his big brother. This is a 28-year-old, almost 29-year-old man. I'm now thanking God that this man is out of my life. Yeah, I would be too. I can only imagine him doing this if we were married and had kids and got into some kind of fight. Literally disappearing in the middle of the night. I am anxious and excited to hear your thoughts on all this. Um, well, I agree with what you said. I'm thanking God too, collectively, that this guy is out of your life because, oh, what a runner. What an immature runner. I've got so many words that I could use, but I'm gonna take a moment to just pause. Amy, what's your prognosis on this disaster?
Wow. I have to say I'm not surprised at the ending of this letter because it is so in line with the level of dysfunction that he has been exhibiting this whole time. And I am so relieved to hear you write, Kate, that you are now thanking God that this man is out of your life because you can only imagine doing, only imagine if he's doing this now, what he might have done to you when you were married and to your kids. And you are so right. You are so right. In fact, it would be a miracle or after a long time of intensive targeted therapy, that would be the only way that this wouldn't happen or this plus more wouldn't happen. And you're so right. You know what? I'm imagining that you're somewhere around his age. If he's 28, 29, I'm imagining you're somewhere between, 20 and 40, it's safe to say. 20 and 40, you still have the rest of your life. You can do anything. You are at a time when you have your whole life in front of you. And I'm so honestly, not to sound like one of those, I'm not trying to Susie Brightside you, but this is a blessing in disguise. This is maybe not even in disguise. This is a blessing that this man is out of your life because the stakes are so much higher when you're married, when you have children, the more time you spend with someone. And the fact that he quite literally ran is again so fearful avoidant. Um, and honestly, I have to say, all joking aside, the severity, the frequency, the intensity of his flip-flopping, it makes me think that there is something serious underlying. And again,
I agree.
I don't say this to give him an excuse or to give you something to hook onto to say, oh, maybe if he gets help in this, we have a chance. And I don't mean to insult you with that because I don't think you're there, and I hope that you would never be there. I have to say this behavior is screaming to me, and again, I could not know this in any way, but either the death of his mother was so extraordinarily traumatic to him and it is gone unprocessed, and or he has suffered like a capital T trauma at some point in his life because this behavior is so erratic and so irrational and illogical, and the way he is walking the line between loving you and wanting your forgiveness and then like leaving and dating someone else but telling them they're not ready. And the thing is, like, if we zoomed out and if this letter read something like, this happened, we started dating, and then like he just told me he didn't want to marry me, and then that was it, and like that sucks. Of course my heart would still break for you, but it wouldn't be like some mystery or indicative of some serious trauma because it's kind of something happened, it's over and it sucked. It's not what I thought it was. But you can tell how tortured this man is. You can tell like he is physically running. He is quite
Yes.
literally running. And you know, you're so right. Unless you have some serious stuff going on, you are not going to book a flight and run from your brother, from your own brother, for the your dad's 80th birthday because you don't want to talk about this. I think something happened with him. He has a lot of unprocessed trauma, whether that's, you know, trauma or complex post-traumatic stress disorder where little, you know, lower level traumas have persisted throughout his life. There's something going on because this is just, I don't know how else to explain this. What do you think, Ken?
You know, I love that you've actually stopped to talk about this because throughout this letter, I've gotten nothing but the impression that his dad in particular has been holding this guy to accountability, as has his sister, the brother-in-law. You know, it's wild to me that it seems like there are some very level-headed people in the family unit. Like, I don't know. Look, this is where things get really interesting because based on the information we have, we apart from the mum's death, the fact that he didn't get on very well with his mum, you know, it's interesting because we don't have any further information to go off in terms of like what it's like living with the family of his and what that interaction has been like since the mum has passed or before that to much extent. So, you know, it goes back to the original question of the egg and the chicken. Is it the nurture? Is it the nature? Was this guy just born this way and a series of adverse events caused him to activate and to have these extreme expressions? If we look at it from a spiritual lens, was he someone who fucked up in his past life only now to reincarnate to go through it again? Who knows? But something is really wrong here because I find it based on what we have, with the evidence that we have in front of us, it would seem like his dad and his brother-in-law and his sister are trying to hold him to accountability over this thing. And if he truly didn't have a reasonably level-headed family unit, I think they would be blaming you, Kate, for what's going on and deciding how you've made my poor baby sad and trying to have a very enmeshed language around this. But the fact that that's not happening makes me think it doesn't mean to say that there was no enmeshment in the family unit or anything like that. Enmeshment being one of the key things that creates avoidant attachment in people. But I think there's probably more to the family background that we're not aware of. But at the very least, it's just wild how this guy's done a runner from his dad, his brother-in-law, you know, his sister, you technically as well too. It's like he's done this all to himself. It's crazy. It's really crazy. And, you know, can I just say, Kate, I know that you didn't write this for our benefit in the sense of being like, this is obviously your story and you didn't deserve to go through any of this. But what a fabulous example of a highly narcissistic, fearful, avoidant attacher. Like, I mean, I love these letters so much because even though there's obviously repetitive themes, which are great because you can see it's like it's the same story almost every time. What I love about this one is you can, if anyone wants to point definitively to where something is severe FA behavior, dismissive leading FA behavior, I'll just be like, go to that episode. This is like classic fearful avoidance sort of stuff on the extreme end of the spectrum. Maybe not as much boomeranging, maybe not as much, you know, other signs and symptoms that we would normally read out, but who cares? It's a great staple. Like it's a really good example of like where, you know, shit hits the fan and this guy has ticked off every box of severe avoidancy.
Yes, it really, really is. And, you know, whew, it's it kind of makes me sad. I'm feeling this feeling of sadness for him in my chest, and of course for you, Kate. But honestly, and again, not to brightside you or invalidate you, and I don't think that this is how you're going to take it. I see you as somebody who is secure, who
Agreed.
has a lot of self-awareness, who has a lot of compassion, and I think that you're going to do just fine. And I think that you are going to get the love that you want and deserve if you haven't already. I know that you will. I feel very bad for him. And again, this is in no way excusing his behavior, but emotionally healthy people do not behave this way. Especially, I mean, not only could you say that he ran from you in so many instances, when you are running from your own family, and of course, we don't have any indication of what his relationship was like or is like with his dad and his brother, it seems from their interactions with you that they are relatively secure. At least that's what we can make from their interactions. It's very sweet and kind of them to be concerned for you, to hope. The feeling that I get from your communication with his family is that they're like, we know that he's got issues. Like, please hang on because we want him to be with you because you're wonderful and like he's gonna mess it up. Um, but again, back to my point, emotionally healthy people don't behave this way. And if we think about it, what is an emotionally healthy person? An emotionally healthy person isn't like just someone who's just genuinely better or like they just have a better character than other people, although that might lead into character. An emotionally healthy person is either someone who has not been through a shit ton of trauma or somebody who has been through a shit ton of trauma, but has also then been through a shit ton of therapy and help to heal. And so I feel bad for him because I'm really just getting the sense that he has a lot of unprocessed trauma. And again, when you hear Ken and I refer to severe DA, severe AP, severe FA, what we are saying is this person experienced severe trauma because the level of your attachment style, the intensity of whatever you are, whether that's anxious, fearful, or avoidant, is very likely correlated with the intensity or duration of your specific trauma that caused that. And so, I would say there's stuff that we probably don't know about, but also the fact that, if we think about it, losing a parent is traumatic, period, at any point in time, period. Losing a parent when you are a teenager, probably a little extra traumatic, but to add on to that, that he didn't have a good relationship with her, think about how that would affect any of us. Think about the feelings of grief and guilt and anger and regret and all of those feelings probably going on in an endless, unresolvable loop. So and then there's the whole issue, which we don't have time to go over today, but there are, these set of, there is men and women react differently to strife in their relationship between their fathers and mothers. There are things called like the mother wound and the father wound. And anyone can have any one of those, but whew, I think that you are obviously so much better off, Kate. And again, I am so sorry that you went through this. This is Nobody should have to go through this. And at the same time, I'm so happy for you that you are not with him. And at the same time, I think the most peaceful way that you can move through this and move on from this is to be happy that you're not with him. And then also just to send him off into the universe and wish him healing. I don't think that it would be beneficial for you to hang on to any sort of intense anger to him because I think that that would tie him to you in a way that is also continuously robbing you of energy. Again, I'm not getting the sense that you are doing that. But just send him off in peace and wish him healing. And of course, I wish you nothing but love and healing.
I will say this though, I am a big fan of anger. So if you want a rage room, I will happily create one on Zoom and I'll be like, get it out, get a pillow, get something to break because this man's probably worth at least a dozen plates and glasses to smash on the floor, amongst other things as well too, including that peanut butter jar that he left you with your clothes and your belongings. What the actual fuck? I hope that didn't have anything inside of it that was, diseased as well too. Like just ugh, yuck. I'm gonna round it here because oh my God. I need to go. I need to go have some I need to have lunch and to calm down off the back of that because that was a lot. Which by the way is not a reflection of you, Kate, being a lot. It's more of this story like as Amy said, like you did not deserve to go through this shit at all. Like it's so unfair. And you wouldn't be the only one. There are so many people who've gone through very similar sounding things to you. I've worked with some clients who've had, variations of what you've been through, and it's disgusting when they go through this. In fact, I'm thinking I might actually share this episode with a few people that I know because I know a lot of people find these incredibly supportive and validating for them because often at times the dynamics mirror so much of what they've been through. So yeah. Anyways, I'm just gonna round it here and say once again, Kate, I'm sorry you've been through this, and thank you so much for sending this letter. This was, even though there was obviously a lot of pain that I was feeling in the letter, I actually really loved reading it. So thank you for that. That was great.
Yes, Kate. Honestly, you once you are to a point, I think you can sell this to a screenwriter and have a really good movie because it is, it reads like that. It's unpredictable in the beginning. There's true love there, there's closeness, there's insane disappointment. And I know this is not a movie, this is your real life. Um, but I really get the deep sense that you are going in the right direction, that you you are truly thanking God that he's out of your life, which is so good. And I really think that you will find the exact love that is worthy of you, that you want and that will fill you up and that you can trust, because you clearly have very good instincts and you are clearly very much, if not completely, securely attached. And you deserve healthy love. You deserve the healthy love that you give. So we wish you the best, Kate, and thank you again for trusting us with your heart and with your story.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, just to round it here, anyone who's interested in submitting a letter, please be aware that the submissions will open up at the end of February. We have quite a few letters that we're getting through this month because it's been a popular month and we were very happy to get through some stuff. Amy and I will be back for more episodes this week and next. We're also coming back with Mike to talk about avoidant thoughts, and we've got a pretty good topic in mind for what we're going to discuss later in the week. But yeah, hope all of you got some value out of this, and we will speak to you next time.